Is there things that we need to cover? One thing, Alex, I'm probably gonna move to push that lead. I thought I sent you an email, but to push that lead into the Public Safety Committee.
You're muted, Alex. And I think
I interpreted what he said. I got what you meant. Cool, not a problem.
I think we are. We live on Facebook too, just so everyone's aware.
Yes.
Outstanding.
And we're now recording.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, my dear.
You don't get upset.
I get what I get and I don't get upset. That's what my daughter told me. That's what we all can learn. Charger for my phone. So we are good to go. We can roll in if you want, unless there's other comments that need to be made by folks. The breakdown of the day. When you do that, I was gonna exit out when you do that. On the action items today, just so you know, I've got Diane doing the minutes. Kevin, I've got you on the treasurer report and bills. Adam, I've got you on police. Again, we're pulling down 7. We're pulling down the lead, but we are keeping the number 8. And then Diana, I have you on chickens. Mr. Mayor,
People are coming here.
If you want to, on the workshop, you asked me about the LEAD program, and I didn't really have that in front of me. I do have a little bit more information if you'd like me to talk about that.
So you can, but at this point right now, what we're going to do is refer that back to the Public Safety Committee.
Okay.
So they'll address it in that space. So you can kind of bring it to them rather than just leave it out here for council to vote on without Public Safety without committee getting a chance to really review it.
Yeah, no, I was just going to give it like a little bit more, like what does LEAD stand for?
Sure, you're always more than welcome to, and
just a little background kind of stuff.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Not a worry. So to 7:04, we will call the meeting to order at this time. We'll do a roll call, then Pledge of Allegiance. Should we do? I go by the order you write, so whatever you write is what I do, Alex. So
we're going to go roll call and then Pledge of Allegiance.
That's what you got, sir. That's what we do.
Adam McDowell.
Here.
Valerie Renthaler.
Here.
Matt Castiglia.
Here.
Norma Greco.
Yes. Here.
Kevin Collins.
Here.
Vice President Diane Law.
Here.
And Mayor Paul Gamrat. And of course, our President, Jay Dorn.
All right. All present and accounted for. I see the flag is here. We can stand and attempt again our best in the same time Pledge of Allegiance. So I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hoorah. It is a task to master the timing of the pledge on Zoom. I try to figure out how people do those songs together, and I realize it just takes a lot of editing. Is pretty much the story of the day. So welcome to March. This will be the last of the winter meetings, if you will, a year into the magic of COVID, no less. And we are still going. So we've got a few things on the agenda today. As we start, as always, best part of waking up outside of Folgers in your cup is old commercials for those who get it. Is to get to hear from our residents. So we'll start with public comment. That being the case, if you can go into the participants, if you click on participants, you can raise your hand. I will go through the raised hands first. Once I've done that, if you can't find it or you're having trouble, I'll look for anyone on video if you physically raise your hand. And once I've done that, if you don't have video on and you still are trying to make a comment, I will go through and allot for anyone who either doesn't have video on or has their phone. So that being the case, we will start at the top, which is Mr. Bilby. If you can state your name, address, and please, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Thanks, folks. I appreciate it. Now I lost my notes. Let me find it. Oh, there it is. Okay, tonight I got a short message, so it shouldn't be.
Remember to state your name and address.
I know Murray Bilby, 2424 Churchill Road.
Thank you, Mr. Bilby.
Thank you. Okay. I'm still learning and collecting information about the history and the challenges of finding the appropriate development for the Westinghouse R&D property. Tonight, I want all the volunteers that work for the borough and the residents to know I'm soliciting contributions to the Churchill Future website that's related to this Hillwood presentation. Personally, I think it's inappropriate for the site, but I also want to make available all the data that can be collected so that others can come to their own conclusions with the facts. I'm known to change my own mind with new facts and data, but I just haven't seen it yet. So I would like anyone who can contribute useful information that may help others better understand the different aspects of the proposal to do so. Now, I see three primary challenges with the project in no particular order. First, it's the overall logistics. The Parkway East is antiquated. I mean, having been designed and built prior to the Eisenhower interstate projects, yet it will need to support those 18-wheelers that deliver and haul off the products during the 24-hour-a-day operation. Now, just like the lettuce that only stays a few hours at the Giant Eagle distribution center before being delivered to individual stores, the Amazon facility will be a nonstop operation, moving goods in, goods out quickly. And even if half the functionality is automated and operated by robots, as is proposed, rather than humans, goods will still need to be delivered and shipped out. And 3.5 million square feet is a lot of area to continually fill and empty. Second challenge is topography, where so much of the already unstable earth will need to be moved and used to fill in for the retaining walls on the east, south, and the west. Now, this is important. This hilltop, known as Sawmill Run, it's one of the headwaters of the Turtle Creek watershed, and Sawmill Run is already considered impaired due to sediment. Third point, effect of the stormwater surges. Storms, as noted by lots of government studies, increasingly have more intense downpours than the earth or the drainage can handle. It's resulting in flood threats all over the state. So how will the reduction in trees by about 5 acres, which hold back significant amounts of precipitation, and the other open spaces, lost estimated about 40 acres, have on the downstream water quality and the flooding? Now, as a resident only since 2010, I don't know as much of the history of the property as some folks. So if you can also share that knowledge on the site for others, I would appreciate it. So
Billy, that's your time for today.
thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments as always. And I look forward to conversing in the future. Moving forward, we have Joel Carrick. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Joel Carrick, 116 Marywood Drive. I'm going to change the subject. I'm going to talk about chickens. I'm sorry to have missed the Planning Commission meeting the other day. I didn't realize there would be discussion on the chicken ordinance at that meeting. And I was only informed as the meeting was almost over, so I didn't end up making it. I did watch the video of that meeting, though, and I'm glad the Planning Commission voted to recommend moving forward with the legislation. I would just like to take a moment to restate a few concerns about the ordinance that I have. I know this isn't the hearing, but I would like to address this before the council. I sent out an email a few weeks ago to several council members about these concerns. While I'm glad to hear you have been in communication with your own chicken expert, Philip Flower, I would like to ask council for clarification on a few sections of the ordinance and why they are written the way they are. I'll be back. Specifically, where did we come up with the 25-foot setback requirement and the 4 chicken limit? There are some large properties in the borough that can handle way more than 4 chickens without being a nuisance, and smaller properties that would be completely unable to raise chickens because of the setback requirements. Forest Hills, for instance, has a 25-foot setback requirement from another neighbor's dwelling, not property line. Another concern I have is the language governing the construction materials of the coop and run, such as requiring only metal or shingled roofs, or requiring feed only be stored in a metal container, or weatherproof walls in the chicken run with a wire roof. There are countless ways to safely build a chicken coop and run, and many prefabricated models made of wood or plastic that are perfectly safe and vermin and predator proof. This just seems like unnecessary regulation. And the last concern I will bring up this evening, well, certainly not actually the last, because again, I realize this isn't the hearing, but just to get an idea of where council's at on all these points, is the requirement to vaccinate the chickens according to veterinarian recommendations. So first of all, I am not anti-vaccination, but it needs to be said that there is no industry standard recommendation for vaccinating chickens. All chicks are usually vaccinated when they hatch. There is no requirement to provide a record of this to whoever buys the chicks. And there's no consensus on what, if any, vaccinations need to be given to chickens while they are being raised in a backyard setting. Very unnecessary. Anyway, those are just a few of my concerns. The email and all its attachments go into more detail if you wouldn't mind reviewing it or forwarding it to someone who can answer those questions. And I look forward to some responses and to the hearing coming up, whenever that is. And I do know that any major changes to the ordinance will just start the process all over again, but I would rather have us get it right the first time than to push through something just for the sake of getting it over with. That's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. I think that probably will get addressed around the table and during discussion, just to kind of put that out there for you. Moving forward, I'm looking to see if there were any other comments. If you're getting, I see you. I see one hand being raised and shaken, so please. All I have is John M for your name right now, so I have to go by what the name is. But the floor is yours if you can state your name and address. Yes, you need to yes, absolutely.
Hi, Council. This is Nicole McGinnis, Nicole Boyda McGinnis at 34 Church Hill Road. And I'm here to speak chickens as well. I stand behind everything that Joel has said. I just want to address you and go back through our history. A year ago, almost to the day, we met and you directed me to, as you know, we have chickens. I'm being perfectly honest and open about that. We have chickens, and I was directed to do my research and to draft an ordinance for you, which I did. And I was also directed to form a chicken committee, which I did. We have worked very hard in doing our research and coming together to present to you an ordinance, which from my understanding was completely overlooked. I am disheartened by this, and I am disheartened that we have not been a part of this process. I have read your ordinance, and I do believe that there's a lot of really good positive wording and things that weren't considered for our ordinance. And I think that there are a lot of things that have been overlooked. I'm concerned for the chickens' safety and health, and I'm also concerned for first-time owners. The experts that we have sought out are Jen and Phil from Rent the Chicken, who have joined us today. They are willing to speak if you would allow for their 3 minutes. Excuse my should I turn it over to you at this point?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how John McGinnis, but we just like to request a special meeting with a member of the council to go over some of the changes and why they were made. And we want to have this meeting with the chicken committee, because everyone on the committee has questions as to why things were done, and just to kind of go over it. So we just like to request a special meeting with a member of the council to go over that.
But I do want to say I appreciate and thank you in all of your efforts for moving this forward. That I am grateful for that. I also just want to add that we do have more than 4 chickens. That is one of the issues, the number of chickens, and I'm really the number of there are other things that I oppose, but the number of chickens, I feel that by limiting it to 4 chickens, you're going to have a lot of people not pursue a permit, and that you're going to have a lot of rogue chicken owners as you do now. I know that the people who have chickens in Churchill at this time have more than 4 chickens. So that I'm stressing that point.
I appreciate your comments.
I
would say-
also,
well,
I'm sorry.
time is expired. So,
Okay.
but I do appreciate your comments, and again, I think it'll be addressed. I would point out that as a matter of process for us, we want the community input, but ultimately we have to kind of draft legislation. That's what we are ultimately in charge of. So even when we get something that comes from individuals on the outside, it comes before the committee. The committee then, our committee then, in terms of zoning, makes a recommendation in terms of what it should look like. So both things are true. Our role, quite frankly, is always to look at what we think is best for kind of overall Churchill, not just for, a particular individual who has a particular position on it. I think it was brought to our attention in terms of the importance of many of our residents of owning chickens and being able to do so and have an ordinance that allows that. And so we sent that to a committee to make sure that that happened, understanding that previous to this, it didn't exist. So again, I will allow those who have been more intimately involved in the process to speak on it. I think as it is something that we'll discuss. But I just want to kind of respond and let you know kind of where and what the role is for council and how we review kind of ordinances that come in. So having said that, I'm going to look for some other comments. And as I say, I think it will be a discussion that we continue with. So it's not dead at this point, but just for the purposes of public comment. So I'm going to look around and see if there's anybody else who had a public comment that they wanted to make today. Again, I already had one hand wave in the camera, so I don't know if there's any others that I'm going to miss. So I'm going to give a quick second to make sure. I'm not seeing any.
Okay.
Yes, that's next time I think is moving to the phone. So
Hi,
tell you.
18 Holland Road. I cannot resist commenting. I want to direct council to an article that was published in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette this Sunday on page 1, and it had to deal with environmental justice issues by the Biden campaign, talking about development in certain areas that had high concentrations of industrial development and air pollution. Certainly the Mon Valley qualifies, and I think residents have a concern about the Hillwood plan with increased traffic directly across from the Woodland Hills Junior Senior High School and the Pace School, and of course across the parkway from Beulah Christian Preschool. We are taking down allegedly 1,000 trees, maybe more, from the Hillwood site for the development plan. Trees mitigate air pollution. The Mon Valley and eastern suburbs have a high percentage of air pollution compared to the rest of the county, and the Hillwood plan would only increase air pollution in our area, which adversely affects not only school children, but of course elderly residents as well. But of more concern, that's a very valid point, but additional concern is the loss of stormwater runoff from current meadows. Approximately 50% of the site is going to be paved over. The Beulah Road Valley is already prone to flooding, and from experts that I have talked to, the Hillwood plan does not adequately address stormwater runoff on the eastern side of the property. I want just to put that on record. Thank you very much.
I appreciate your comment. Interestingly enough, the EPA study that you're talking about, I've worked with the EPA in my day job in that space of environmental justice and continue to. I'm very well briefed on that. There's also, if you're interested in that type of study, because that study is about inequity, more than simply environmentalism, it's about the inequity, and that's why it's environmental justice space, not simply an environmental space. There's actually another great study that was done by Andre Perry at the Brookings Institute, specifically on inequity, and him being a local kind of Pittsburgher. It's very interesting. And then of course, there's the city of Pittsburgh's own study on inequity that covers kind of outcomes based on racial demographics in our community. So it's a great study. It's certainly worth something to look at. Understanding environmental justice is about equity in the role of environment. So Greatly appreciate your comment. Is there any other comments? Yes, Barry. So hand goes up. You get the floor. You're gonna have to unmute yourself because I know you're saying the most important thing we're ever gonna hear. State your name and address, even though I know who you are, so everyone else can know.
Barry Kisloff, 176 Thornbury Drive. As far as the development is concerned, a lot of the issues with runoff and tree removal and ground stability have to relate directly to the magnitude of this project. And from what I've learned, this is even for the people who are developing this site, this is a pretty big project compared to what they've done in the past. In the process of reviewing this prior to making their final or semi-final presentation, has the subject come up of diminishing perhaps the size of this endeavor? With a smaller footprint, some of the concerns may be mitigated. And that's my question for anybody and everybody.
So interestingly enough, they did in fact come back to us with a smaller size at one point. So I think that is something that is always in conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other? I love the hand raise on video, so that's like my favorite because I get to feel like I'm somewhat like in the room with people. Any other comments before I move on? Again, I try to give everyone that extra time to make sure that I'm not missing anyone. And okay, then we are going to move forward. I appreciate everyone's comments. Again, this is why we do what we do. Sometimes we're able to really kind of put those comments in action. Sometimes we're unable to, but we appreciate them in either case. We're going to move on now to
Jay.
I'm sorry?
Jay, this is Matt. Before we move from public comment, I guess I wanted to find out, I would be interested in hearing what the folks from Rent the Chicken have to say. I don't know if we want to cover that.
From Rent the Chicken, are they taxpayers?
They are not.
Are they residents?
I don't believe they are. However, I know we let
for
other
the purposes of public comment, Matt, we can definitely visit them at the back end of it. So that's not that they're off the table, but for the purposes of public comment is taxpayers and residents. Then when we get to the discussion space, we can bring them back into that conversation.
Okay, thanks.
No worries. So kind of flowing through this, if I can jump to ordinary items, we've got motions on the table. There is nothing you can do when you are in that position, as much as I want to hear everything you have to say.
Can we have the agenda up, please?
So
there we go.
There we are.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't control that space, but
you want to remute?
Okay, Mr. President, I move that the council accept the meeting minutes from February 1, 2021, which is the council workshop, and for the February 8, 2021 regular council meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, aye. I missed discussion on that. See what happens. Matt, you threw me off. I'm all confused now. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. So, yeah, it's already carried, but as a matter of course, there should have been discussion on that. So if there was discussion, I'll leave it open, even though the motion is passed, if there's anything people want to discuss on the minutes. Okay, so that's my fault, my mistake, my apologies in that space. And my apology to you, Matt, also. Just in the matter of process, I just wanted to make sure that the process goes forward. So yeah, that's all that was, just as a clarity in space. Moving on to number 4, Kevin, if you want to give me 4 and 5 will be good.
Yeah, Mr. President, I'd like to move that we accept the treasurer's report, the very detailed and excellent treasurer's report, and also to move to pay the bills.
I like the combo motion on the table. I looked at the solicitor to see if there's any problem in the combination of motion. I don't see him saying this.
Unless someone on council has an objection to putting them together, there's no issue with that.
I didn't think so, but just, I give the look. That being the case, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Adam came in just a bit quicker because he didn't have to click the mute button, Valerie. That's how I got you on that one. Is there any discussion on this?
Yeah, Mr. President, I want to point out that the gateway invoices were over $70,000 this month. However, over half of that will be reimbursable from the Hillwood development people and from our GROW grant.
I especially like the GROW grant space. Any other discussion? As always, it is posted now, so I feel it's a little easier than me having to read them all. But as a matter of course, we always try to make sure that the bills that go over the amount of 15,000, and I love that we have now broken it down from above 15,000, 10 to 15,000, and 5 to 10,000. I think it's wonderful, so that the public can see any particular large expenditures. Yes, solicitor, you know what's coming. So today's for this month, the large expenditures. The first is Tucker Arnsberg Attorneys in the amount of $16,502.50. This is the direct result of the many consultations that we have with our outstanding solicitor, along with his need to prep for post-pandemic trips to Disney World or wherever he's going. But no, it is a key space for us right now with everything that's going on. We have Vigliotti Landscape and Construction, the amount of $30,608.31. You know, quite frankly, infrastructure costs money, and this is a lot of what's going on our road space. Gateway Engineering, again, this was that reimbursable space that you heard from Councilman Collins, amount of $71,222.26. And it's actually, you know, multiple projects, not just one, in terms of where that reimbursement is coming from. So you'll see that it's listed that we both have the Schaefer School, the Hillwood, and the GROW grant space. And then Cargill Incorporated in the amount of $26,546.15, which is salt. Turns out we got to pay for the salt. They don't give it to us for free. I'm not going to read the rest. I generally only go through the 15,000 or more, but they are listed there for you to give you a sense of what our expenditures are. Is there any other discussion regarding either the paying of the bills or with respect to the treasurer's report? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And both bills are paid and report is accepted without opposition. This moves us on to the mayor's report. I'll turn it over to the mayor before we look to any motion in the space.
Okay, I'm ready. Thank you, Mr. President. As reported to me, I wish to inform council that there were no unusual events during the month of February 2021. Our officers responded to 640 calls for service, a total of 1,270 year to date, resulting in 5 arrests. The total amount of magisterial fees collected for the month were $580, bringing the total to $848.47 year to date. The borough's 4 police vehicles logged 5,861 miles during the month, giving us 9,668 year to date. Work has increased in the deconstruction and remaining asbestos abatement at the Westinghouse site. There were residents who were concerned about the increased noise levels coming from the site. The chief has also reported that there were several incidents that were reported by the management of the Westinghouse property that they had been harassed by persons coming onto the property who opposed the plans for its development. The property has posted no trespassing and has been for some time. A private security firm has been contracted to enforce this. All residents are advised not to enter or attempt to enter the site for any reason. The chief also reminds us that with the improvement in the weather, residents have taken to the outdoors. We see an increase of walking, jogging, and riding bicycles in many areas of the borough. He urges us to be mindful of this and closely adhere to all posted roadway signage and speed limits. We want to keep all our residents as safe as possible. We cannot be reminded enough to make sure that all vehicles left outdoors should be locked, secured, and no valuables left inside. I have received several complaints from borough residents concerning the refuse containers and snow and ice removal from the sidewalks. Residents are reminded that ordinance which address these issues, details and other related statistics concerning the police department during the month of February 2021 are reported on the attached police department reports. And just, I had some other things I had mentioned to you earlier. Just to touch base, we talked about the LEAD program, which is a resolution, still it has not been officiated yet, but just exactly what is LEAD? It's the acronym for Law Enforcement Assistant Diversion, which is a community-based diversion approach with the goals of improving public safety and public order and reducing unnecessary justice system involvement and harm of people who are repeatedly arrested for low-level offenses, usually associated with substance and disorders of problematic behavioral issues. So just in a nutshell, it's to prevent, especially young people who have the mental illness issues, substance abuse, to getting into a system where they can't get out. It's tied in with a number of contiguous communities. So with our police chief, we'll be working toward moving to those goals.
Thank you. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the mayor's report.
But wait a minute, one, just as a sideline, I have totaled, I like to give council an update on this. I have 242 welcome packets that have been delivered to new residents in the borough. I just kind of went back out recently and visited a few new residents, with the social distancing and all that other stuff. So it's been good. And with the nice weather, I can safely kind of do that. So
nice.
There you go.
Always proud of you for that space, Mr. Mayor. I will tell you that right now. If I can return to you at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept the mayor's report.
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Kevin was quick to draw again. Any discussion on the report? Oh, Kevin, you look like you're pensive, so I'm trying to figure out if you're.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, then hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And the report is accepted without opposition. One of the things that the mayor was talking about, obviously, was the LEAD program. It is currently on the agenda. I would just point out that the information really needs to go back to public safety, and public safety can make a recommendation. And so that is what I'm asking at this time, that will go back to the Public Safety Committee, at which time they can make a recommendation back to council on to accept or not accept that program. So I'm going to pull that off in terms of as a resolution for today because it hasn't gone to committee. And I think this is something that needs to be looked at and then sent forward since it does require a resolution. If everyone's okay with that, I'm going to move us on to number 8 in our space today, which is the question of a motion for hiring. I would accept a motion from somebody if they want to make that motion for me. I think I'm on the plate.
Mr. President, I move to direct the borough manager to advertise a special meeting of the council to hire 2 patrol officers for the Churchill Borough Police Department. The Civil Service Commission is scheduled to meet on Tuesday, March 16th at 6 p.m. to certify a list of candidates. Do we need a date for that?
That's what I was about to follow up that ask with. Mr. Solicitor, in that space, I assume we would want a date following that in the motion.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So
And a time too.
What's that?
How about
And
a time and a
time
date?
too?
I don't want to get greedy, but I'd like
you'd like a time. So if it's happening at certify at Tuesday the 16th, I think this requires a bit of an understanding of when we'd want to do that. Do we want to do it later following that, or you want to do it the next day? The call is yours. I'm gonna look to Adam today since he's on the floor in the motion, and we can call a special session.
Yeah, can we just say maybe Wednesday the 17th then at 7 p.m.? Does anyone have an objection to that?
I'm okay, but it is St. Patrick's Day, but it's.
Want to go to the 18th?
I'm glad someone said that, but.
So in fairness, we should go to the 18th. I don't think it's a good move to do anything on St. Patrick's Day. Whether you know this or not, my wife is half Irish, and it does change the day. So We don't play around on that day. So 18th will work.
So if I could amend the motion for the meeting to be on Thursday,
The motion's
March
still
18th.
open, so you don't have to amend it. So just finish the motion with the date. We're good, because otherwise it takes 2 votes. You have to vote on the amendment and then vote on the motion.
Okay,
So motion's open. We're stating everything that you stated, but on Wednesday or Thursday, the 18th at 7 o'clock.
Yes.
That's the motion on the table. Did everybody catch that? All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? As a matter of course, just to restate, we're talking about hiring, advertising a special meeting to hire 2 police officers, and that the special meeting will take place on Thursday, the 18th at 7 o'clock. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so begins the process of hiring the new officers. That moves us on to the magical space of the chicken ordinance. And so that brings Diane to the table.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that the council direct the borough manager. I can't read it now because it's gone.
You got to bring it back. See, normally, just in fairness, normally
Okay.
when we were in person, I relied on Diane every time to have the agenda next to me because I didn't know what's going on. Now I see that I see what it's like, so I apologize.
It's all right. I will start over. Mr. President, I would like the council to move to direct the borough manager to advertise a public hearing for the draft, a backyard chicken ordinance. The ordinance will amend Chapter 304 zoning of the Code of the Borough of Churchill to regulate the keeping of chickens. On March 3rd, 2021, the Borough of Churchill Planning Commission met and unanimously recommended approval.
Thank you. Is there a second for said motion?
Second.
Yeah, I was just going to say, before you second, do you want to actually state a date and time for this one as well?
You know, that date and time thing is killing us today. It's killing us.
We had one suggestion we had that was discussed at the planning commission, I think also maybe with the zoning committee, would be to have the meeting at the beginning of the April 5th workshop meeting. And then that way, council could hear all the residents, taxpayers, give it a week to sort of think about it, and then come back, and it could be on the agenda for a vote the following week on the 12th.
I think that's great. I also think it gives time for some of the other conversations that were asked for. So I think it allows for both spaces if we do it that way. So
Does that date also meet the 45 days for Allegheny County review?
Pretty sure we had talked that through, Alex, but do you have handy that calculation or the date you submitted at least, so we can do some back of the napkin stuff?
So council voted on February 8th to move it to the county, and that arrived on February 12th. So the idea was we'd be able to have our hearing, but we would be able to, by the time we got around to voting, we're getting close to covering those days. Because that's February, this is March, we're talking April.
Yeah, so we should be good to go on both deadlines.
Outstanding. Any other discussion then? Because so again, we have that same thing where I have to restate the date. Well, the motion has to restate the date first, and then I'll restate it for everyone in discussion. Otherwise, we have to do an amendment to it. So what was the date on the motion? I can't make the statement of the motion. The person who has the open motion makes the statement on the motion. So,
Ms. Law, you got that?
Yes. It's the date is fine with me.
April. So you're gonna make the motion for April 5th at 7 p.m.
Correct.
So is that the date, Ms. Law? Because you have the motion on the floor.
Yes, that's the date.
Thank you. This is why you get the big bucks, man. You know.
Such a parliamentarian.
What's that?
Such a parliamentarian you are.
Only in these moments, right? Only in these moments. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion other than to restate the fact that this motion in terms of is to advertise for the public hearing This is not to pass the ordinance itself at this time. And it's given plenty of time to ensure. I know there were some folks who wanted to speak with council and some other issues. So we're talking about in April, which meets the guideline for the county to review, and that the date would be April 7th. Did I say it right, or 7 p.m.? I missed it. I missed it. April 5th. Thank you very much for the hands. Motion on the floor. You can't, Joel. I see you waving your hand, but you can't in this space. This is a council motion on the floor. It's not open in that space. Not that I don't see it, so I'm trying to acknowledge it, but it's just the reality of process. It is the reality of the process. So that being the case, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, and so we have a date set for a public hearing space, to advertise for public hearing space, quite frankly. And that will move us forward in that space. That covers the motions. We do have, it looks like 2 kind of defined discussion spaces, which is really our development spaces in terms of what's going on. And so the one being, obviously, is everyone talks about the space of the Churchill, the Westinghouse project, right? Churchill Creek, whatever we're calling it. We all know it as kind of the Westinghouse space. Looks like the next public meeting in the matter is on the 7th. Maybe that's why I kept saying the 7th, which is basically the Planning Commission. Again, we make the documents available to everyone, and so we want to make sure that that's there. Any comments from folks on kind of where we are, what's happening in the magical world of the Westinghouse space? Anything that needs to be discussed?
I guess I would just mention, and I think this has been publicly announced already, but the borough is anticipating receiving the revised plans for the updated smaller project this Wednesday was what the expectation is. So, those will hopefully have more information. Nothing really to update beyond that, and it will be discussed, as you said, at the next Planning Commission meeting on April 7th.
Understood. I appreciate that, Mr.
We do know that submission will be also made to the PADEP and the DOT as well for them to comment. Am I right?
Well, I think it depends on which study or plans you're talking about. I mean, I think if they're, I'm not sure where the traffic impact study is, and that's going to be ready for resubmission. I think we're talking specifically about, the site plan and the associated revisions caused by the reduction in scope.
Okay, but if part of that deals with traffic, the Planning Commission and the council will have to hear from the DOT and the DEP. I just want to get it straight in my mind what the process is, Gavin.
Right. I mean, we don't know exactly what to expect on the 10th. We expect at a minimum a revised site plan. I would expect that additional studies that are being updated, hopefully those will be included as well. And certainly traffic, as Dennis probably knows, can explain better than me, but sort of follows its own path and review timelines because of the sort of lag time when you're dealing with PennDOT and also with the county. So Denny, you want to fill in any gaps there?
Yeah, just so if a traffic impact study is resubmitted, PennDOT typically does allow for 30 days or 1 month for any review. So anything that would be submitted this Wednesday most likely would not have something back in time in terms of their comments by that Planning Commission date.
Okay, thanks for that, Gavin and Dennis. Okay.
Sure.
Any other discussion on the issue? There's no action item on the floor for this, so it's open discussion.
Just a general comment I wanted to bring up is, I know that we've, as council, we've all been reviewing the comments that we get in, and they are distributed, amongst council. Anything that is emailed in, our borough manager sends out to everyone so that we're all on the same page. And I first would like to say thank you to our other council members for taking the time. I know everyone takes that very seriously, goes through it very well. One issue that I see kind of keep being raised is that Hillwood, kind of has engineers in their pockets, I think was how it was described. Just for transparency, I want everyone to know that, yes, Hillwood has hired an engineer. They do submit reports, but as we were just talking about, those reports are then reviewed by our engineer, who is completely independent. We hire them, they work for us, they don't work for Hillwood, as well as governmental engineers through DEP, through the Department of Transportation, et cetera. So, certainly that could be a concern, but, throughout the process and having seen that, kind of how the sausage is made, quote unquote, there have been, a lot of different comments of things that our engineer said, hey, we don't agree with that analysis. Same thing, the Department of Transportation said, hey, we don't buy that. It needs to be this. So it is a back and forth process, but I think it's important for our residents to know that, yes, Hillwood, I'm sure, has an engineer, and of course they have a certain way they want things presented. However, we have independent engineers and other experts in sound and environment, that we are contracting with to make sure that we're getting this right.
Point well made.
Well made. Well said.
No doubt about it. In fact, you see that line item that Dennis gets for his trip to Disney World that he wants to take his kids on as we pay out our engineers to do this work. But I appreciate both your comment, Matt, and that I think sometimes people don't know that, and so you pointing it out is really important, and really helpful, and also I think true. So that, very, very important. The other thing that we have on kind of the discussion space is, again, a development space. That's the Planning Commission voted on February 3rd to move that the Borough Council, the conditional use application of tract development proposal to redevelop the former Schaefer site. The motion requires the applicant successfully receive a variance from the zoning hearing board. And the zoning hearing board is scheduled to entertain the variance from TREC on March 22nd. So bottom line with this, it does go before zoning for a variance. This is some senior housing that we're looking at developing up on the space of what was the Schaefer site. This will put the site back on the tax rolls for us as well, along with giving kind of well-needed, I think, senior housing in an area that we have a high number of seniors who are sitting in housing that quite frankly, some of them are having a difficult time upkeeping, but they don't also want to leave Churchill, and we don't want them to leave Churchill. So that is where that is at. I don't know if there's anything people wanted to add on that before we move on to any particular reports people want to bring to the table or around the table.
I do want to point out there may be talking about multiple public hearings now that I think about it for April 5th, but Alex or anyone who's on either zoning committee or planning commission, I guess, Diane, I think we're anticipating a public hearing before council on that conditional use application at one of the meetings in April. Is that correct?
I believe so.
So yeah, we're on a 60-day deadline. I think we've talked and have the necessary extensions or having a commitment to the next necessary extensions if needed. But I know with the hearing scheduled or the zoning hearing board hearing scheduled for March 22nd, I think the hope is that that variance would be granted. The applicant's hope anyway, that the variance would be granted, and then that would be able to be considered as part of the application that's before council at the public hearing in April. So we'll get back and confirm. We will make sure the necessary advertisements are in. Does council have a preference, assuming that there's no difference, from a timing standpoint from state law? Is there a preference in doing it the workshop meeting where the chicken ordinance is going to be considered, or would you prefer to do it at the business meeting?
Given my preference, I would say do it at the business meeting so that we can give the chicken ordinance its due diligence and time.
Okay. Unless that causes a timing problem, we'll set it up then for April 12th.
Okay.
Fair enough. All right. We will move to staff and council. First of all, anything that needs to be reported up by staff, Mr. Manager, I will defer to you, and Ralph to go through the reports of both the fire as well as the manager's reporting. If there's anything that needs to be covered.
I think spring was mentioned earlier, and we're certainly welcoming it. As you can see by the salt purchases, we've been very active for almost a couple weeks in a row in mid-February, early to mid-February. It was a pretty brutal month. So we're thankful the road crew was able to do what they're able to do and keep everyone safe. And as Matt mentioned earlier, people can send comments to me regarding the issues to make it simple for themselves. And I will forward those to council and the planning commission and to our engineer and staff as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Atlin, any comments, being that you both have public works on your domain as well as the fire department? Like, you don't do enough around here, sir.
Yeah. The only thing I have to comment on is that most of our firemen have been vaccinated with their first vaccine, first shot. So probably in the next 2 weeks, we'll all have our second vaccination.
Great.
So that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Greatly appreciated the work you do and to make sure that you're safe doing it. I'm going to roll through and ask Mr. Mayor, is there anything that we need to cover today, sir? Again, you are saying the most important thing that the entire community needs to know, but we will never know because you're muted.
I got to pound this key with my hammer to open it up. But thank you, Mr. President. Believe it or not, I have some limited comments tonight. But anyway, I just thank everybody for, the public comments that we had tonight. And to, just again, that council's working very hard, everyone, to make sure that what we do in the future is something that we're all going to be able to live with. Like everyone else, I'm certainly anxious for spring to roll out to get outside and get my hands up into our common gardens at Beulah and Churchill Road, which leads me to my next comment about, if there are people out there that want to, lend a hand in volunteering. I was talking to Alex earlier, about kind of beefing up our litter pickup, just things we do around the borough, helping our neighbors out. We get a lot of comments about the snow and ice removal. When that time comes, if you can lend a hand to a neighbor, help shovel the snow, possibly pull the garbage cans back up to the door, help them out a little way, spread that around with your neighbors. So, we can all be in this together. And then I wanted to again thank Ralph and the crew. I talked to one of the new residents the other day and I said, you have any comments? And he said, I can't believe how well they take care of the roads around here. So that in itself, shows you right there over in the Black Ridge area. He said, these roads are impeccably clean. I said, well, we strive to have them, so you can get to work. So he's very appreciative of that. And that's about all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to roll through and go around the table. I'll make sure I cover the solicitor and the engineer, and then we'll go through council. And if you have any comments on to the public or for the matter of reporting, this is that time. So we'll start with the solicitor, though, see if there's anything that we need to cover.
Nothing from me. Thanks.
Thank you. The interesting lit engineer. I see that the color of your space has changed.
Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure about the color.
Some kind of party over there in the Gateway Engineer space.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. President. We did submit our engineer's report. Just a couple of quick items has been discussed. There is a lot going on currently with the pump station replacement and gravity sewer project. We have submitted responses to comments permitting on the 2 separate permits that were submitted for that, as well as we have prepared the repairs that we are utilizing the existing open excavation and lining contracts. So we hope for those contracts to get started quickly, which will also allow us to start to request reimbursements for the grants that were received for that project. Otherwise, we do have the road program project out for bid, the CCTV contract out for bid, and the Kingsdale Road storm sewer project currently out for bid. That is all I have.
Thank you. Your lighting reminds me of the old cat filter thing that everyone saw, right? I'm expecting that to pop on. What'd your kids do? That's the question of the day. I'm going to move around and hit around the table real quick. I will do the Hollywood scares. I date myself between Brady Bunch and Hollywood scares every time I talk. But we'll begin with Mr. McDowell.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a couple things real quick. I saw that the Borough newsletter went out over the weekend. I got it at least. So thank you, Alex, for putting that together, and Krista, and I hope everyone gets a chance to take a look at that and read through that. I appreciate all the comments, again, people coming out to these meetings here via Zoom regarding the Hillwood project. All the research people are putting into that is great. We appreciate your comments, keep them coming. Regarding the chicken ordinance, I think that, we've looked at this a couple different ways. We understand that the chicken committee has put together their own version. Nothing prevents us from revisiting this in the future. Again, just so you're aware, I think that what we're looking at right now is maybe a little more conservative than the committee would have wanted. However, I think that this is probably a good starting spot for us as a community moving forward. But we look forward to hearing your comments further in April at the meeting regarding the ordinance specifically. And the last thing I wanted to mention, since it is, people have mentioned spring coming up and people getting out a bit more. And I know, there's good news about vaccines and everything, but please, keep up with wearing masks and social distancing. I know there's good news on the horizon, but we're not there yet. So please, everyone, keep up doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDowell. Moving on to Ms. Greco.
Yes, I echo Adam's remarks. I want to thank the residents who continue to do such profound research into this Westinghouse site, and appreciate all of that. And also the newsletter is great to see the newsletter again. Alex, thank you for getting that out. And also, Paul, thanks for the welcoming kits. I think it's nice to have something personal in a time when we can't be personal. So it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Greco. Moving on to Mr. Castiglia.
Sure. I just have a quick comment. Appreciate all the resident input. Certainly, we take it under consideration, and I guess I wanted to ask Jay if now would be an appropriate time to share my time with the folks that did join us from Rent the Chicken, or when that should happen.
So, generally, I would say that we would do it in the public hearing space, but I think your request that we can make an exception for council to give to if the rest of council does not mind to allow the folks from Rent a Chicken a few moments to speak, unless there's objection from council in that space. So without objection, then I will give a couple minutes. I can't give kind of a large forum for you, but I will give you a couple minutes to speak. The floor is yours.
Hey, thanks so much. I'm Homestead Jen from Rent the Chicken. My husband, Homestead Phil, is right here handy as well. Before I just spew a lot of words, maybe if anyone has any questions as to our perspective, we did send over through the Chicken Committee the what we recommend for changes. So I just thought I'd shoot back a chance for any questions.
So I don't know that there's going to be a lot of kind of question time right now. I think that's probably something that if you wanted to have either in a private space or at the public hearing space but right now I don't think that, and I'm looking at councils, I kind of let everyone give a moment to see if they had questions. I don't think that's going to be the space. I think the question was brought up by Joel to give you time to speak. And so it was asked again by council to allow that to happen. So we are allowing the floor for you to speak, quite frankly.
Sure. No well, let me just tell you a little bit about us. I did reply to the initial review of the chicken ordinance with just some suggestions. We've been in business since 2013. We do business all over the United States and Canada. We've participated in a lot of chicken law changes. So feel free to, as you read that, if you have specific questions for us, shoot them back to us. We're here to help. We are a business. However, not a lot of business of ours happens in your area. We've only had a couple customers since we've been in business since 2013. So what we are really here to do is help out John and Nicole and Joel and everybody else that's part of this council, the Chicken Council, to just allow people to have backyard chickens with with the knowledge that they're going to be, it's going to be easy to do. Backyard chickens, they're really not smelly. Hens are not really that noisy. Since 2013, I've never had somebody call me up and say, hey, come get rid of these chickens, they're too loud. In fact, one short story is I delivered a coop in Pittsburgh at a row home. And in October, I went to go pick up. And when I went to pick up, the neighbor came out and said, oh, are you dropping off the chickens? I said, no, they've been here for 6 months. And they were like, really? We had no idea. So there are definitely ways that you can safely keep chickens in your community, ways that are not going to be a nuisance to your neighbors. And it's also, you know, a fresh, healthy food that someone can have right in their backyard, on top of the therapy aspects that chickens provide for families, especially with people with autistic kids, PTSD, former veterans, stuff like that. Did you have anything else you wanted to?
No, we just asked you to take into consideration the comments that we made in the document that we provided to the Chicken Committee, because at this point, with your regulations in place, people will not be allowed to participate in our service legally under your restrictions.
Duly noted. I appreciate your comment. The only thing that I would say, just to be clear, the ordinance is in one space. You did bring up the question of particularly individuals with disabilities, and in terms of what's considered ESAs or emotional support animals, that falls into a different space, which is allowable irrespective of an ordinance. So that falls under the Fair Housing Act, and believe it or not, our solicitor and I have had much experience in that space, because that is my day job for the last 20 years, is dealing with the Fair Housing Act. But so that, just to be clear, if you are somebody who is requesting a chicken or another particular animal due to needs because of, you know, PTSD or autism or other disability related needs, that is not pertaining to this ordinance. That would not fall or restrict you irrespective of this particular ordinance, just so that's out there.
Would someone then still need to get a variance if they had those needs?
So a reasonable accommodation functions under a completely different set of laws. It's under the Federal Fair Housing Act. And so the variance process is different. The thing about a reasonable accommodation, I'll give it kind of a 10-second version of this so that people also don't think it's a space that fully just kind of flows in this easily. The space of a reasonable accommodation requires that the person qualifies as a person with a disability. As a result of their disability, there is a particular request that they are showing that affects a major life activity, and that there's a nexus between the request that they're making and the major life activity. When they request multiple animals, then generally you need to be able to show the need for each individual animal. So the reasonable accommodation space is very real, necessary, but falls under a completely different set of guidelines than standard kind of chicken ordinance space would be. Unless there's something that you would like to add to that, Mr. Solicitor, on the world of reasonable accommodation.
Certainly, I would not mess with you in this particular field.
It's my wheelhouse, my friend. I got one wheelhouse, so I'm staying with it.
I would just say, and I think this probably was evident from the way you described it, but those requests are reviewed on a case-by-case basis and are very specific to each individual, so that we were not going to have sort of like a blanket rule for all reasonable accommodations related to chickens. It would be as the process that you described. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yes, as a matter of federal provision, the idea of reasonable accommodation, every reasonable accommodation, regardless of what it is, what the animal is, whether it's animal related, non-animal related, we have reasonable accommodations for people who can't take their garbage cans back at the time that the ordinance provides for. All of those are deemed on a case-by-case basis. Okay, sorry to digress. I appreciate your comments. Matt, I will yield back time for you if you would like to complete any other comments.
I'm all set.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate you bringing it back to my attention. Thank you, sir. Moving on, I am losing my Hollywood Square, so I will jump on to Valerie.
Hi, everyone. I just want to say thank you, everybody, for your commitment to our borough. All of your comments and research is absolutely valued. I feel like I'm a broken record when I get called at the end because everybody said such awesome things, but thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Valerie. I wish I could express to people how hard council works. I guess I just did, but it can't be understated. You guys should know that this council really puts in an incredible effort and amount of time. So I appreciate you all. Mr. Collins, floor is yours.
Yeah, okay. I want to echo what everybody else has been saying. Thank you to the community for sending the emails, for commenting on these meetings. All of it goes in front of council, goes in front of the planning commission, goes in front of the engineers. It's all being considered. I'm looking forward to this March 10th for the resubmission from Hillwell as this process continues. On another subject, I'm glad our projects are going forward. Kingsdale, Grand Boulevard, the streets. There should be some good things done this year on our infrastructure. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Madam Vice President. Floor is yours, Diane.
Gee. I could say a lot, but I'm going to try to make this as concise as possible because everybody wants to come. I want to follow Adam's comments and Matt's and everyone's. We want to take a second to, again, thank the mayor. We have the most special mayor around, goes door to door, every single new resident. So, you know, we're as lucky as we can be. I will turn quickly to the chicken ordinance. I think what's most important to understand is that the council has been looking at this issue for a number of years now. And one of the reasons that it is not, you know, gone to this point yet is because there are a considerable number of people in our borough who are apprehensive about having chickens in the borough. It's very important for you to start from that perspective. The council zoning committee reviewed all of this, took all of the input, and we appreciate your input and your comments. We have an obligation to the community at large to do things that are in the best interest of the entire community. In this instance, it is fortunate that we're able to get to this point. You do need to know that the committee feels pretty strongly that a gentle introduction of this sport or this hobby, not a sport, a hobby, that this hobby is going to serve your interest in the long run. As Adam mentioned, as we go forward here and we have experience with this and the residents have experience with this, we can go back and we can take another look at things, you know, ways that we may want to adjust this ordinance. The other point I want to make is that the council is obligated to seek out expert opinion on things like this and to seek out the best possible source of that information and that expertise. We're fortunate in the state of Pennsylvania to have one of the foremost universities in the country on this subject, which is Penn State University and their Department of Agriculture, the School of Agriculture. Paul Clauser is nationally recognized as an expert in small flock chickens. He is the person that we have used as our primary reference. We've met with him 3 times and gone over the ordinance with him in great detail. So that said, I think we'll certainly be able to find a way that we can have an additional dialogue with the people who are interested and committed to this issue. Just so we understand that that's the baseline. The council has the responsibility to pass ordinances, and with all the input that we get, ultimately that's our responsibility. So thank you, and we'll take it from here with Alex and see what we should organize here. Thank you.
And I caught myself, so no one had to tell me I was muted. Just took me an extra second to get it done. My apologies. So I was saying that leaves, you know, between exiting the Zoom call, I used to say between going home, is myself. So just a few things to cover. One, in the space of the kind of Hillwood space, the development space, you know, this is ongoing with 1,000 moving parts. We are trying to address all 1,000 of them simultaneously. And it's also not new. In the space that Hillwood is the current scenario, but we've been looking at this property in this space for, you know, I've been on council for 11 years now, I think, something like that. And it's been a #1 priority in many different directions with many different conversations with now a couple different owners. This is our fourth owner, I think, since I've come on, because the CBS Viacom litigation, really, I count them as two separate owners. So, you know, the work of development in our space is something that we take very seriously and that we're working very hard at, and to do what's right. And that goes for the Schaefer School too, and that goes for the Churchill Valley Country Club space as well. All of these are part of our space. What I would stop people to and remind them, though, that I think sometimes people forget, is that we're not the owners of the property.
Right.
So there is a subtle difference in the space of development. While we talk about ordinances and some other things, we are not the owners of the property. There is a similar development, just in case you're wondering, that I was alerted to in Detroit. They are the owners of the property, the city of Detroit. We are not. The other thing that I would point out in all of these spaces, the Schaefer space, the Hillwood space, the Churchill Valley Country Club, we have to look at this holistically. We don't look at this as individual. It's not simply, you know, whether the revenue is there or not there. It's all of these things have to be taken into consideration in combination in order to figure out what the best decision for the borough is. And this has been going on for many years as we continue to try to do this. That is the development space. In the ordinance space, particularly in the chicken space, the thing that I do want to stay, and I think I don't want to belabor it because it's been talked about by multiple council people, but simply that the role of council, as I said before, is to figure out what the best ordinance for the borough as a whole is. That's our role. The role of individuals who are interested in this is probably to figure out what the best ordinance that works for them is, right? And I get that too. You know, there's a difference in space. I think, you know, our role is to make sure that whatever we put in works best. And quite frankly, if it doesn't work best, then our role is to say, ooh, that didn't work best. That was a mistake. Go back and address it, right? That's how we're supposed to operate, so that everyone is taken care of. We're making sure we're thinking about everyone in that process. That's about as much as I'm going to go on the chicken space right now. In the space of the officer space and the police force, as you'll see, we're talking about adding 2 new officers in that space. That's really bringing us back to what our current or what our previous kind of baseline was for Churchill. Additionally, in that, you know, that lead space is the question and conversation about how we do policing in Churchill. It's really interesting because one of the things that I keep trying to explain to people is that on the one hand, government is super, super slow, like so much slower than I ever anticipated, even when I came in like 10 years ago. Like I can't tell you how slow this process is. On the other side of it, being Churchill and being small, right, lets us probably do some things and try and push the envelope in places that other people can't do. And if we're not doing that in the space of policing, then we're not doing our job, because I think there's an opportunity for us as Churchill. The last thing I will say, and then I will not bother you guys anymore, and I will let you do your thing. You know, I am super aware hyper aware of Churchill's history, who we are, where we came from, both in the way of, as Mr. Bilby talked about, in the influence of Westinghouse, and also in the influence of the school district and what happened in terms of our, quite frankly, our racist history that we had at one point. I've been around this for a very long time. When we talk about the future of Churchill and what Churchill used to be and how we want it and how it was this kind of community or that kind of community, there were wonderful things about Churchill that existed 30 years ago. And there were not wonderful things about Churchill that existed 30 years ago, right? I quite frankly want a Churchill that keeps all the wonderful things and gets rid of all the things that weren't so wonderful, right? That's the goal I know of the rest of council. And so I appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody else, because I know that's the goal of 99% of our citizens, right? Especially everyone who shows up on these meetings and takes their time out. So I won't take any more of your time. I appreciate it all. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, we're staying here unless somebody makes that motion. If you're all up here, you can never leave. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, game, set, match. Let's go home. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you all for coming out.
Good night, all.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.